There are a lot of rumors out there about what the Nintendo Switch Pro is going to be like, and a lot of them are dumb. Don't worry though, I'm here to set you straight on what the next Nintendo Switch is probably going to be like. For those that don't know, I have two Nintendo Switches. Well, I have one, my wife has one. Because we really like Nintendo, we really love our Nintendo Switches, we played quite a bit of them. And I've always really loved Nintendo. I'm super pleased to see Nintendo back. Maybe not on top, but not on the bottom, not where they were with the Wii U. And personally, I'm really excited to see what a Nintendo Switch Pro would look like. And let's be clear, I don't think we're getting a Switch 2. That's just not really in their normal track record when it comes to handhelds. We're probably going to get a Switch Pro. So speaking of Nintendo's track record, let's look at something like the Nintendo DS and 3DS first to kind of see if there's a pattern to what they usually do. So if you remember back, the original DS was kind of a chunker, kind of ugly, the battery life wasn't great, but it was cool. Then the DS Lite came out, which was maybe the perfect handheld of all time. Battery life was better, it was smaller, it was thinner, it was lighter, it was more aesthetically pleasing on top of all that. Then finally we got the Nintendo DSi. Now this added some cameras, some more horsepower, you could browse the web and download games, and a slightly bigger screen. After that we got the 3DS. The 3DS looked pretty good, but shortly after we got a 3DS XL. Bigger screen is always a better screen. Someone who uses a OnePlus 7 Pro with an enormous screen, it's true. Now then we got a 2DS, so that's your cheaper variant. The first time they kind of went out of their way to make a cheaper version of one of their devices. Well, maybe not the first time. I guess they did kind of do that with the Game Boy Micro, which actually wasn't that cheap, but it was smaller. So maybe. Then we got the new 3DS and 3DS XL, which added more power and a little nub guy. So how does that inform what I think is going to happen to the Switch? Well, the only rumors that we really have is that it's going to be using a newer version of NVIDIA's Tegra processor, which is, yeah, probably. NVIDIA said that they expect a multi-year relationship with Nintendo going forward, so I think that's pretty obvious. We're hearing it's probably going to be based on the new Volta architecture, which actually isn't new. It's like 3 years old, but it's better than what's on there now. So we can definitely expect some better performance. But for those websites saying we're going to be getting 1440p or even 4K output, you're probably wrong. Look, let's be honest. You can take the Tegra chip that's in the Switch now. It's also in the NVIDIA Shield. You can overclock that system on a chip, and you can get better performance at the cost of battery life. That being said, a next-gen version, which is still like a couple years behind the curve, is not going to be outputting 4K. I'm sorry. We just got there on the main consoles, and there is not an NVIDIA Tegra chip that is on par with the Xbox One X or the PS4 Pro. It's just not. So what do I expect to see on the Switch Pro? Well, one thing that I think pretty obvious we're going to get is we're going to get rid of these enormous bezels on the current Switch. Let's extend that screen out and really fill up this space. It's going to look a lot better. A lot of people are talking about getting native 1080p screens on these guys. Do I think that's going to happen? Maybe, but honestly, I could see Nintendo sticking with 720p on the handheld, and here's why. Most people think incorrectly that the Switch now has a 720p screen, and that because of that, all the games in handheld mode will run at 720p. They do not. In fact, most games on the Switch in handheld mode are dynamically scaling between 720p and much lower than 720p, and the frame rates are kind of coming up and down. Performance is not that great when it comes to handheld mode. What I would like to see, and what I think is much more in line with Nintendo's track record, is if you keep the screen at 720p, you make it a bit bigger. Now I know, you get too big and suddenly 720p is going to start to look a little rough, but I don't think that we're quite there yet with the screen this size. Keep in mind, we were using 720p TVs that were 27 inches. So if that looked okay, this is going to look okay. And as someone who has changed my OnePlus 7 Pro screen from 1440p down to 1080p and saw no difference at all, I'm pretty sure we can handle 720p on here. And it's not going to be a big problem. With some more horsepower, though, it's actually going to run at 720p instead of dynamically scaling up and down. We also should be able to get a locked minimum of 30 frames per second. That's good That's a big improvement from where we are now. And then as for outputting in dock mode 2, 1440p, or even 4K, like I said, I don't think it's going to happen. I think you're going to stick with 1080p. However, maybe it's going to be locked at 1080p, and maybe you're going to be locked at a minimum 30 FPS instead of where it is now, where some games don't even hit 1080p when in dock mode. We've already seen the Switch struggle to handle ports like Outer Worlds and The Witcher and things like that. So if we try and push this thing to 4K, it's not going to work. We're talking about resolution here. I would rather them take a game that's going to run on the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and be able to downscale it, turn down some settings, and run it at 1080p or 720p at a 30 FPS rate than try and run it at 4K and it run at 15 frames a second. It just doesn't make sense, and it's not who they're targeting anyways. Something else that I think is kind of insane that Nintendo doesn't have on the Nintendo Switch currently is proper Bluetooth audio support. So with the Switch Pro, let's get the newest Bluetooth standards with low latency, and let's get Bluetooth audio support so that for all of us that keep a handy little set of earbuds in our pockets at all times, can just pull them out and use them on our Switch. Another honestly like rather big hardware issue for me is this flimsy piece of crap little kickstand. Like this thing sucks. It just feels bad. I feel like I could rip it off real easily. Fix that, make that better. And then last but not least, 32 gigs of internal storage was for enough, and it needs to be at least 64. Personally, I think all of those things are not only reasonable, I think that they're likely. I think that that's what we're going to get. We may get some improved ergonomics, but honestly, I mean, it's pretty good already. I don't really know what I would change. It's pretty thin, any thinner, and it's not going to really fit in your hand well. So ergonomically, maybe there's some improvements to be made there, but honestly, probably not. Maybe some kind of rapid charging solution, because that's everywhere now. So yeah, that's what I think the Switch Pro is going to be like. Take all those other rumors, throw them in the garbage, and only listen to me. What do you guys think? What do you want to see in the Switch Pro? Is 4K important to you? Any features I left out, anything obvious, anything I got wrong, please tell them in the comments below. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs. If you loved the video, give me a sub. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.